If you want to open your Bible and read along with me, we'll be reading 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 12 through 20. For even as the body is one and yet has many members, and all the members of the body, though they are many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greek, whether slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. For the body is not one member, but many. If the foot says, because I am not a hand, I am not part of the body, it is not for this reason any less a part of the body. And if the ear says, because I am not an eye, I am not part of the body, it is not for this reason any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But now God has placed the members, each one of them, in the body just as he desired. If they were all one member, where would the body be? But now there are many members, but one body. You may be seated.
Thank you all for being here tonight. This morning, we had the pleasure to appoint 41 men to serve as deacons over various works here at North MacArthur. Many of them are new deacons, and they're starting, or they've been deacons previously, but they're starting new works. And so they're going to need a lot of help, which means all of us will have to pitch in to help with these different ministries. So I want to encourage everyone here who hasn't yet filled out an involvement form or needs to update theirs, go ahead and grab one from the North information table tonight, fill it out, or you can go on the app and fill it out that way as well. Now tonight our service is going to be a little different. We're going to hear from 3 deacons over their areas and the ways that they serve and how you can get involved. And I want you, as we listen to these different deacons tonight, think about ways you can get involved into these different ministries. So we're going to hear from Grant Morgan, who's going to talk about our community breakfast. We'll hear from Dalen Rowell, who's going to talk about our hospitality team, which is greeters, ushers, and Info Cafe, and specifically focusing in on Info Cafe. And then we'll hear from Rob Schwartz, who's going to talk about Welcome Home. So we're going to start with Grant.
Good evening. Let me get my notes up here. Technology is difficult for me. All right, I guess we're going sideways. There we go. All right. I have served as a deacon here at North MacArthur for about 5 hours. So it's about time they got me up here to speak. Now, while I've only been a deacon starting today, our family has strived to find ways to serve here at North Mac over the past year. And one way that we've been able to do that is through our community breakfast. So I'm here to tell you about the new ministry that we have here, just started this past year. So it may be kind of new, maybe something that we're not all familiar with. And so hopefully after tonight you can better understand what our goal is and how you can come join us for one of our breakfasts. The community breakfast has 2 goals. And the first one is kind of the obvious one. The one that we probably all realize, and that is connecting with our community around this building. One common problem that we see in churches, especially in the metro area, is we are starting to turn into commuter churches. And if you don't know that term, that is a church where the majority of the membership no longer live around the building. They drive in from outside the city, maybe the suburbs, Piedmont, North Edmond. If you look at our where people in this church live, we stretch all over the city. We have people up by Arcadia. We have people down in Yukon, South Oklahoma City. We come from all over. And that's great that we have so many people coming here, but it also leads to a problem. As we continue to grow, we lose connection with the neighborhoods around us. This is not a North Mac problem. It is a problem with many churches in the metro, and it's actually a problem throughout the country in bigger cities. We lose that sense of community. Our neighborhoods are changing, but we are not. The more our neighbors change and we stay the same, the farther we drift apart from them. And that's the less of an impact that we can have. So we must find ways to reconnect with our neighbors. We need to have an identity in our community. When people refer to North MacArthur Church of Christ, they need to be able to have an idea of what we're talking about, where we are, where our building is. They need to be able to say, oh, that's that church. Ashley Rhodes actually just told me this week that she met somebody at the gym. And when she was telling them where she goes to church, they said, oh, is that the community breakfast church? So it's amazing how just having a presence in the neighborhood can help you connect with somebody. And Ashley, of course, had a good response and reminded them we also have a free community worship service every Sunday. And that's our goal, is to be able to connect with people and let them get to know us a little bit better. Reaching out to our neighbors is a big part of outreach and evangelism. And this breakfast is one of many ways in the future that we are planning on reaching out to our neighbors. No one is exempt from being evangelistic. No one is exempt from the Great Commission and reaching out to people. Churches spend a lot of money on programs and methods of how to do that better, but there is no right way and there's no magic pill. There's no special program to implement. It's actually just getting to know people, building relationships. No one wants to hear about God from a complete stranger anymore. People don't want to know what you know until they know that you care. Meaning they aren't going to listen to us unless they have a relationship with us. And that's what our goal is to build that relationship. Most of us are limited with our outreach to the people we come in contact with on a daily basis. That is our neighbors and our coworkers. And after COVID, our coworkers sometimes have dwindled down to online, so we don't necessarily see as many people on a day-to-day basis. And so as we move away from the church building, that leaves a hole around our neighborhoods here that we have lost connection with. So the goal for this breakfast is to build that relationship with our neighbors. The second goal of our community breakfast is to target the community that we kind of forget about, and that's our church community. We are trying to not only build our relationship with our neighbors, but we're also trying to build up our church community. The breakfast isn't just for our neighbors, it's the community inside the building. Our congregation here is big enough that we sometimes lose the unity and the togetherness that God intended when He built His church. We can go to a worship service with hundreds of people every Sunday and never really get to know them. Through the breakfast, I've been able to get to know a lot of people that I probably wouldn't have gotten to know beforehand. Serving alongside them, eating a meal with them, you get to know somebody a lot better. If you want to be part of the community around us, if we want to be a part of our community around us, we first have to be a community ourselves. We can't be effective reaching out to our community unless we first strengthen ourselves. Yesterday we had our last community breakfast, or our most recent one, I guess, is better wording for it. It wasn't our last one. We're going to have many more. We had our most recent community breakfast, and we had 10 visitors from outside the community and probably about 30 members from within our church attend. These numbers can easily double. I expect them to double next month, in fact. So if you haven't come to join us, please do so. There are many ways that you can help serve, but most of all, you can just come enjoy a meal with each other, enjoy a meal with us, get to know each other a little bit better. This is something that we've done a good job with BK groups and other avenues, but this is just an additional way to get to know each other. So our breakfast is at the beginning of every month. Most likely it's the first Saturday unless we have a conflict. Affirming the Faith was a conflict, so we moved it the week after. But we have it at the first of every month. We begin serving breakfast at 8 o'clock. We stop serving at 10 o'clock, so you can come and go as you please. We can always use help. We always need people to cook, serve, clean up, And starting next month, we're actually going to be going to the apartments nearby and knocking doors and doing a personal invitation to everybody in the apartment complex. I don't want to knock a lot of doors, so the more people that show up, the less I have to knock. So I will urge you to please show up. We'll be announcing the exact information and dates as we get closer. But I ask you to please join us. And also, if you want to volunteer putting up the signs, that gets annoying every week, or every month. Putting up the signs is quite a task. So if anybody wants to volunteer to help me do that on a Sunday afternoon, that'd be great. But please be praying for our community breakfast, that we can reach out to others and that we can be more effective with it. And please consider joining us in the future. Thank you.
Our next song is number 828, Instruments of Your Peace.
Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let your love increase. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Walls of pride and prejudice shall cease. When we are your instruments of peace, where there is hatred, we will sow his love. Where there is injury, we will never judge. Where there is strife, we will speak his peace. To the people crying for release, we will be his instruments of peace. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let your love increase. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Walls of pride and prejudice shall cease. When we are your instruments of peace, where there is blindness, we will pray for sight. Where there is darkness, we will shine his light. Where there is sadness, we will bear their grief. To the millions crying for release, we will be his instruments of peace. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let your love increase. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Walls of pride and prejudice shall cease. When we are your instruments of peace.
Before I get started on how excited I am to tell you all about the Info Cafe, I have been a deacon for 6 years.
4 years, Info Cafe, begging you to let me do this. 5 hours with Grant, huh? Okay. Not sure, Grant, what you have over me, but you got it, buddy.
So let's start into it. What is the Info Cafe and what goes on in that room? So some of you have been a part of it. Thank you for that. Some of you haven't been a part of that. But the original concept, whenever we started it, was the idea that so many people leave a congregation and so many people join a congregation. So if we can get to talk to them and get them involved with what's going on in the congregation of North MacArthur. Then they'll stay, and they won't be so likely to just leave whenever they're upset or leave whenever they're not happy or whatever's going on. For whatever reason, people leave, right? But so to do that, we would just kind of explain to people how to get involved in church events, BK groups, welcome home. And for the most part, they would jump in and get involved. In the beginning, we would stand outside the door right by the front doors, and we would just, grab a visitor that we thought was a visitor. That's a key point. We thought they were visitors. I was here for 4 years, saw some people, said, "Hey, you look like a visitor. We haven't met. I've been going here 20 years. So a little bit different now. Tim actually gets the visitor cards, and he calls these people, and he asks them to come, gives them a little bit of a heads up to come into the Info Cafe, gives us a little bit of a heads up to have them come in. Most people do want to meet the preacher. Most people do want to talk with him, and most people want to talk with the elders also. So it's kind of a neat situation to how that goes. What goes on in the room? Well, simple things, right? Just conversations. So we do introductions. We just meet, what's your name? How are you doing? Where are you from? Where do you live? You live around here. Once you get to know someone just on a basic level, right, of meeting and greeting people, now they have a contact to someone who actually goes to worship here, and we have a contact with the visitor, right? But also on top of that, we ask them questions like, what can we address for you at North MacArthur? How can we help you? What would you like to learn? What are you looking for in a church home? And then we ask them, what's your biblical background? Were you raised in the church? Did you come to Christ in later in life? What's your story? Tell us what you have, how you got here. One of the most important questions we ask that takes up most of the time is not an easy question to ask, but is bold enough to get a truthful response. The question we always ask is, how can we help you spiritually? And that's a key, right? So you can get involved all you want. What I've learned is that most people who get involved in doing things with the congregation, they'll always eventually get involved doing something with the congregation. But if we help them spiritually, find out where they are spiritually, how can we help you? What can we do for you to help you get there? And then we listen. You just be quiet and listen. It's not easy to change congregations. Sometimes you feel forced to, sometimes it's a bad situation, sometimes even in a good situation, it's not easy to change congregations. So when you ask, just listen to them and wait for the response. Let them tell you what they have to say. Some of the things that have happened when I've been in the Info Cafe with Tim or without Tim, we've had brokenhearted people. They just want the truth to be taught. They're coming from somewhere that, they want a home. They want a place that they know that the truth will be taught no matter what. They need meat. We've had a situation where one said, I was in Richard Dodgen's class, and it just felt like I was getting fed meat, and I need to hear the truth. That's what we're here for. Let me tell you where else you can go in Bible classes or with people. Do you need a personal Bible study? We've had parents. Parents are kind of one of my favorite ones because parents come protective and guarded. They always walk in that room protective and guarded. And their thoughts are they need assurance that they can bring their family here and the Word of God will be taught. Not just for them, but they're worried about their kids. We're coming here for a youth group because you all have a youth group. Can my kids worship here? Is your youth minister going to teach the Word of God? No opinions. Is he going to give us exactly the meat that they need to steps to salvation? Or is that going to happen? We assure them that it is. And if our word isn't enough, which is fine, let's get you an appointment or a sit down with Jeremy. Let's get you sit down with the elders. Let's help you understand where we as a congregation come from. Lastly, this one's kind of interesting and might only be localized to 2020 and 2021, but we had a lot of people who were not lost spiritually, but it's almost like their compass had just been flipped upside down. They want to worship where they've always worshiped, but the doors are closed. And our doors were open. And it was such a great opportunity to meet so many people who weren't necessarily looking for a church home. Some of them did come, but they weren't necessarily looking for a church home. They were just looking, can I worship here and feel like I'm worshiping God and know that I'm doing what's right because I don't particularly like it online, right? So it might be only to that specific years, but those were interesting ones. So how do we help someone in the Info Cafe with their spirituality? We explain to them that the large congregation is a smaller congregation with the BK groups and welcome home, Bible class events, get involved. They can be around like-minded Christians, right? And then assuring them of the leadership and the goals of that leadership. So how do we assure people who might be broken or looking for that church home, how do we assure them of the leadership? If a person comes here long enough, they'll see it.
They'll start to see it on their own. They'll see the leadership's works. They'll see what they're doing, see what they're about, the goals, everything that happens here. Every one of you all knows what I'm talking about. And so, but we in the Info Cafe have to find a way to explain that to them, okay? So that's the easy part. Why do you attend here? Tell your story. Tell them why you attend here and why you love the leadership, why you love what goes on here. If we help someone fix their relationship with God, then God does the rest. We don't have to work so hard. No matter how someone comes to North Mac, the message from the Info Cafe will always be, we want to help you spiritually. I know it can be scary to ask the question, how are you doing spiritually? But I've met people already who have been in the Info Cafe scared to say it, and now they're thriving in it. And we should be asking each other those questions. If you'd like to get involved in that, it's great. It's a really, really interesting and fun way to talk with people and get to know people. Get a hold of me or Kyle. Thank you.
The next song is on the slides only. Let him have his way with thee.
Would you live for Jesus and be always pure and good? Would you walk with him within the narrow road? Would you have a very burden carry on the road? Let him have his way with thee. His power can make you what you ought to be. His love can cleanse your heart and make you free. His love can fill your soul and you will see what's best for him to have his way with thee. Would you have him make you free and follow at his call? Would you know the peace that comes by giving all? Would you have him say so that you need never fall? Let him have his way with thee. His power can make you what you ought to be. His blood can cleanse your heart and make you free. His love can fill your soul and you will see what's best for him to have his way with thee. Would you in his kingdom find a place of constant rest? Would you prove him true each providential test? Would you in his service labor always at your best? Let him have his way with thee. His power can make you what you ought to be. His love can cleanse your heart and make you free. His love can fill your soul and you will see what's best for him to have his way with thee.
Well, it's been about 15 years that I've been a deacon here. So I'm up on you, and I'm an old man. But it's been about 5 hours that I've been a welcome home deacon. So I've been asked, my name is Rob Schwartz, by the way, and I've been asked to share with you some information about welcome home. And when we came to this congregation, what you said touched my heart. We were one of those that were hurt, and we were looking for a home, and we were parents, and we wanted to find a place that our children were safe and that they be taught the truth. And us too. But we didn't have Info Cafe, but we did have Tim. Where is he? We had Tim, and he met us at the door, and for 6 weeks, if I remember right, every Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday night, he shook our hand, and Harold Thurman called us by name and greeted us, asked how we were. He knew our kids' names. And then after about the 6th week, he said, "Look, Rob, I think I count 6 weeks that you and your family have been coming here. I'm going to tell on you." And he said, "So are you guys going to be perpetual visitors, or are you going to go to work?" And he wasn't kidding. And so I pulled him aside and I said, "Look, we come from a place that was difficult. We were hurt, and we're wanting to make sure this is our forever home. And we want to be here, but we want to make sure that this is the right place." And he goes, "Oh, okay. You need to meet with the elders." And I said, "You can do that?" And he said, "Absolutely." "Okay, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. I was like, "Whoa, okay. All right." He said, "You have questions?" I said, "I do." And he said, "Bring them." So we met he was there. We met with the elders around a table. This doesn't have anything to do with Welcome Home at the moment, but I got to say this. So as they introduced themselves around the table, almost all my questions were answered just by their comments, talking about the church and talking about, you were there, talking about some of the things that they do. And so I was checking them off. And by the time it got around to my few questions I had left, I asked them. They answered them. And Charles Williams slid a little card over to me, put a pen on it, very subtle, and said, "Is there any reason you can't fill that out right now?" So this was the early model Info Cafe, I guess. But we were very pleased with what we saw in the leadership here, the preaching, everything. And we quickly found a home, a place we could call home. Which leads me to what happened next. We filled out that card, and we turned it in, and it wasn't long, and we were invited to a welcome home. And I said, "Well, what's a welcome home?" And they said, "Well, it's just a gathering of members, a small gathering where you come and you enjoy a meal. You don't have to cook, you don't bring any food, but you'll get to know some people in a small group setting." And I said, "Food, that's good. I like that. Okay, we'll come." It didn't take much to get me. So we went, we had a wonderful meal. We got to meet about 5 couples that were the Welcome Home group. And there was a number of couples there that weren't. They were also new. So we got to meet another 5 or 6 couples that were new just like us. And I thought, well, this is pretty cool, you know, and that was really nice. We talked about it afterward. We enjoyed it. We kind of felt welcome. Well, it wasn't long, and we were invited to another one. And we went to that one, and it was just like the other one, and it was really nice. Well, we saw some familiar faces. And when we came to worship the next time, we were like, hey, we saw them at the meal. Yeah, we saw them too. And we went and called them, talked to them, just visited with them. We felt a connection. And the food was good too, so that was a nice thing. So we met several couples right off the bat. And then the next worship service, we were asked again to another welcome home. And I'm thinking, do they not know we've already done this? So we went to several, and I got to feeling a little bit self-conscious, like we're moochers, right? Like can we get in trouble for this? You know, is this going to be a problem? And we were quickly assured that no, that's not a problem. This is encouraged. This is what we want you to do. So you could quickly meet other people and to be welcome home. And I said, wow, I really like this. So we did find out later that, I won't mention Randy by name, but there were a few that went to like 8 welcome home. So we were okay. So we didn't really have a problem. But what this did is it made us feel very welcome very quickly. We found our new church home. We were making new friends. We found out that this was a good Bible-based congregation where we could grow. We didn't have all the tension and the anxiety that we had before. We enjoyed this so much that we asked around, how can we be a part of that? How can we do what you're doing? We want to be the people that host these or something. You know, how do we get involved in this? So they said, well, you're in. All you have to do is ask. And so we became a part of that group, and we've been doing it ever since. And in one of those meals, we met a young couple. It was early on, and this young couple was newly married, going to college. They were from out of the country, and we just really connected with them. And we talked afterward. We stayed and visited, and then afterward we connected again. And I think we were at another welcome home with this same couple, and we thought, boy, these kids are just so nice. Got to know them a little bit better, found out what they were doing. They were just here to get an education and then go back to their home country and then start their careers. So we thought, well, that's really cool. We got to know them. They were here long enough to have a couple of kids. We had meals with them. We were at the hospital when their children were born. It was like they were our children. And then we had new grandchildren, right? So we were really enjoying this relationship that started out at a welcome home. Well, this relationship grew, and they did return home, and they had successful careers in their fields, and they were doing really well, but then they felt a call to preach and to be missionaries. So they decided, and they talked to us and other members and said, we want to go to School of Preaching. And so they did. So they went to Memphis School of Preaching for 2 years, and that's a difficult thing to do, but they did it successfully. Then when they completed this training, they went back to their home country, and they became missionaries there. And they're one of the missionary couples that we support here at North MacArthur. And of course, I'm talking about Tavaro and Shamika Hanna. They're very dear to us, and they've had several kids since, and some of their kids have been to our house, and we've shared some time with them, and they look to us and they call us Gran and Papa. So we really feel like we are, a part of their family. All that said, to say this, it started at a welcome home. A relationship that a country apart, we're still close, we're still connected. And these kind of relationships, that's not the only one. We have developed relationships with others in this congregation, and we're very close to many people because of things like that started. A welcome home is just something I'd never even heard of. The concept was new to me, but I thought, what a fantastic way to make our new members feel welcome. And these last couple of years, it's been a challenge. A lot of groups haven't met, but we had 5 or 6 groups of about 5 or 6 couples that would schedule meals once a month or every other month, and they would do that kind of individually, but they would report back who they invited, who attended, and they'd keep track of it so that hopefully no new members slipped through, but everybody got invited, and everybody hopefully got a chance to go to a meal to experience what we did and what so many others have. Well, that has been kind of like a lot of things put not on hold, but it has been slowed. But we're ready to get that back into full steam ahead again. And we're going to be reorganizing the Welcome Home groups. And Jeff Weaver and I have been tasked with getting that together. So we have talked today, and we'd like to have an informational reorganizational meeting on May 1st, Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock in room 110. There'll be more information to follow. We're going to ask it to be put in the bulletin and some other announcements, but we would love to have your help. It's easy. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it, right? You just schedule a time, your group gets together, you pick a place, and then you invite them, and they come and you get to know them. Form a circle, you ask them a few questions, you share details about your personal life. Maybe how you became a Christian, maybe how many kids you have, or grandkids. That's always a big one. Everybody wants to talk about their grandkids, not so much their kids maybe, but their grandkids for sure. You just get into their lives and you get to know them, like what Dalen was saying, like what Grant is saying. Good job, Kyle, by the way, of putting this together. You're way ahead of me as usual. But if you'd like to be a part of it, we would love to have you. It is a very good way to get to know your brothers and sisters, to welcome them here, and then to help integrate them into the work that goes on here. Thank you.
Our next song is number 736, To Christ Be True.
To Christ be loyal and be true, his banner be unfurled, and borne aloft till it secure the conquest of the world. To Christ the Lord be true, for he will go with you and help you all your conflicts through. To Christ the Lord be true. To Christ be loyal and be true. He needs brave volunteers to stand against the powers of sin who not by crowns or fears. To Christ the Lord be true, ever true, for he will go with you and help you all your conflicts through. To Christ the Lord be true. To Christ be loyal and be true in noble service through. Your faith and your fidelity, the fervor of your love. To Christ the Lord be true, ever true, for he will go with you and help you all your conflicts through. To Christ the Lord be true.
Thank you, Grant and Dalen and Rob. Thank you for sharing with us a little bit about your ministries. And as kind of Rob alluded to, you could kind of see a framework there of maybe someone from the community coming to a breakfast, and then coming, visiting a worship service, popping into Info Cafe, maybe getting in a Bible study, becoming a Christian, and then as a member here are invited to a welcome home. And that's kind of the path that we hope people who don't know us and don't know Christ can come to know him and become his servants. Now, these were 3 of our deacons. There are so many others, 38 others, and you can grab a list of all the different deacons in their areas over on the South information table. I want you to grab one of those and kind of look for ways that you can get involved. Look for a ministry that you can look at. If you have your Bible, go back over to 1 Corinthians 12. We're going to look at that a little bit as we conclude this evening. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. And we'll tie that in with this idea of looking at a way to get involved. 1 Corinthians 12 to 20 says, "For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one Spirit we are all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and all were made to drink of one Spirit. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I don't belong to the body, that would make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I don't belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body." Paul uses this metaphor of the human body to really illustrate the point that all of us, with different backgrounds, different talents, different abilities, different knowledge bases, different ways that we grew up, doesn't matter where we've come from, but we all function together as a body. And not only that we're all different, but we're all necessary. And that's the most important thing. While we do have structures of elders and ministers and deacons, we need members as well to get all of the work done. We need members to be at the community breakfast greeting guests from the community. We need members being hospitable when people arrive to our worship for the first time. We need members reaching out to other members. Now, as you have heard all of these different ways to serve, I know that some of us are more extroverted than others. And so community breakfast, info cafe, welcome home, that sounds great to the introverts or the extroverts out there, but for the introverts, how can you get involved? Now, granted, most of the ways that we have to serve seem to be more for extroverts, but there are ways that introverts can get involved as well. Taking communion to shut-ins and sick, helping with the lockup of the building. There are so many others, and there are some that we haven't started yet. Card writing ministry we just started last year. There are some that we haven't come up with yet, and I want to kind of charge everyone that if there isn't, or that if you haven't been involved in a ministry yet, be involved with one. But also a challenge of if there is a ministry that we don't have here and you'd like to help start, come to me and let's work on that. Especially those that might be geared towards kind of more of the introvert. Now, the point, of course, is that we all need to find a way to serve God. And like that first song we sang tonight, A Soul Winner for Jesus, that's what all of our ministries work towards. Whether that's inviting someone in or keeping someone that's already here, all of that is working to win souls. So I really want all of us, as we kind of go throughout the rest of the year, as our new deacons are starting their new ministries, let's find a way, that one new ministry that we can be involved with, whether that's one of the ministries we heard about tonight or a different one. Go ahead and grab a deacon list and an involvement form and find a way to serve. Now, as we do at the end of every service, we want to invite anyone with any needs to come forward. If you're ready to put on Christ in baptism, or perhaps you need the prayers of the church, come now as we stand and sing.